In preparation for Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, I've been thinking a lot about Three Houses and Fodlan's greater lore and history. So much so that I decided to go back and play Three Houses and its DLC, Cindered Shadows, to get a little bit of a refresher on all of it. And what I realized is just how much Three Hopes, and especially Cindered Shadows, teased about Dagda and the story of Fortune's Weave. We've already seen a lot of parallels in the marketing. The Shadow Library in Abyss details how the Fodlan calendar operates and why it was established alongside the formation of the Adrestian Empire. This same source also implies that before the establishment of that calendar, a previous calendar used months instead of moons. In Fortune's Weave, we see the month Septim, and we also see that Fabio, a Fodlan native, is still using moons as a measurement of time. From this, we can gather that Dagda's calendar is likely different from Fodlan's, disproving the biggest argument in favor for this game being a sequel to Three Houses. Furthermore, Abyss has the pagan statue which Shamir in Three Hopes claims represents the Dagdan god of fate. We now know that this statue represents Eshmel and or Fortuna, two characters who are central to the story of Fortune's Weave. And of course, the story of Cindered Shadows revolves around 4 new crests, 2 of which we've already seen having a significant role in Fortune's Weave. The crest of Oban, which Kai and Nene both bear, not to mention this crest has an entire goddess and temple centered around it. And the crest of Noah, who is seen on Orkel and Eshmel, the latter of which I genuinely do not have an explanation for yet. Continuing this line of logic, we can presume that Cindered Shadows was designed with Fortune's Weave in mind. Whether that means the game was already in development or the early stages of planning were underway, the fact is that there are core foundational aspects of Dagda that wouldn't fit within the established world building were it not for Cindered Shadows. And so, it serves as a good place to look for other answers to questions we have about Fortune's Weave and the broader Sothis-verse timeline. The main question I've been stumped on is how Sothis can be alive at the same time that Heroes' relics exist in Fortune's Weave. To give a brief refresher on Fodlan history, following Sothis' war with the Agarthans, Sothis uses her remaining power in order to restore the world, and then falls asleep in the Holy Tomb in Xanadu. She is then presumed unconscious up until the point where Nemesis invades the Holy Tomb, kills Sothis, and takes her remains to make the Sword of the Creator. From this point onward, Sothis is deceased. Nemesis then uses the Sword of the Creator to kill all the other Nabateans living in Xanadu save for Rhea, an event known as the Red Canyon Massacre. The remains of these Nabateans are then used to make all the other heroes' relics we see in Three Houses and Three Hopes. Therefore, Sothis being alive is paradoxical with the presence of the Answerer, Dietrich's hero's relic in Fortune's Weave. And just in case you needed any additional confirmation that this game does take place after the Red Canyon Massacre, Dietrich's opening cutscene name drops the 10 elites specifically. So if Fortune's Weave is a prequel, how do we resolve this contradiction? To answer this, let's go back to Cindered Shadows, which introduces us to an event in which Rhea attempted to resurrect Sothis. In Imperial Year 185, shortly after the establishment of Garreg Mach Monastery, the 4 apostles used the Chalice of Beginnings in a ritual called the Rite of Rising. This was one of many attempts Rhea used to bring her mother back to life, and just like nearly all of her other methods, it failed. The 4 apostles, assuming the rite's failure was their fault, all but disappeared from Fodlan. 995 years later, during the events of Cindered Shadows, Alfric attempts the Rite of Rising, this time to resurrect Byleth's mother Citri. It fails, creating an umbral beast. According to Rhea, it is just as the last time the ritual was performed. She also tells Alfric the chalice cannot return her soul, and it is incapable even of returning the body to life. Since both rites had the same result, it can be presumed that both rites failed for the same reason, and if Rhea's words are to be believed, they failed because the soul was not present alongside the body. At the end of Verdant Wind, Rhea says in no uncertain terms that the creststone within Byleth is the heart of Sothis. If we are to believe that the heart is the manifestation of Sothis' power, then it makes sense as to why Byleth is able to manipulate time, and it also makes sense as to why Sothis' memories are so faded. Using that same logic, we can conclude that even though Rhea had Sothis' body, specifically her heart, the creststone, the soul was not present, and therefore the rite failed. This is the foundation of my theory, that the Sothis we know in Three Houses is simply a manifestation of her heart or her creststone present within Byleth. The soul of Sothis might actually never be present in Three Houses, and we are only now starting to see it in Fortune's Weave. Why does Sothis look like a little girl? and why was Rei so obsessed with reviving her? Kusakihara, because the Sothis inside the protagonist is in an incomplete state. She doesn't remember what she looks like, and she hasn't completely healed, so that form is like a point in the middle of the process. She looks very different from the Sothis in Rei's memories, so when the protagonist says, "I see a girl," and Rei looks puzzled, it's showing that contrast. When this Nintendo Dream interview came out, I and a lot of people assumed that an incomplete state referred to Sothis being in a regenerative state, recovering her powers as progenitor god while inside Byleth. But it's also likely that the heart is simply manifesting Sothis' personality, and she's still missing her true self, her soul. This would mean that the incarnation of Sothis we see in Fortune's Weave is her soul present in some sort of higher plane of existence. It also explains why Sothis is not directly intervening with the crisis present in Fortune's Weave, instead sending down Eshmel to take care of it.
To confront the situation, the progenitor god, Sothis, calls down a single soul.
Assuming that her heart is the source of her power, this version of Sothis can basically only look on from above and command others to do her bidding. There's a clip on Nintendo Today that suggests Fortuna had time powers given to her by Sothis in the event that anything were to happen to her, and time manipulation was needed in order to save the world. That would only be necessary if Sothis wasn't able to use her powers, and so we can pretty much safely assume that the Sothis we see in Fortune's Weave can't. Now, we do have scenes of Sothis using her axe to execute the Darkest Dark, and a few other snippets shown in the marketing that might indicate that she actually can act physically at this point in time. However, I'd like to argue that those particular scenes are flashbacks to when Sothis was alive. We can see hooded followers surrounding her, which are most likely the Nabateans of Xanadu. Meanwhile, when she summons Eshmel, there are no followers to be seen, and it's completely pitch black, much like how she appeared in Three Houses in the mind of Byleth and while they were trapped in Zaharos. So until further notice, this seems like the best explanation I could come up with for how Sothis exists in Fortune's Weave. She's a spirit separated from her body, the latter of which is only present in Three Houses. Hopefully this means we get to see two incarnations of the progenitor god with two very different sets of abilities and motivations. I know this was pretty different from my other content, but regardless, thank you for watching my video essay.